Oh, I'm sorry. You caught me while I was indisposed. Tonight we are talking about horror hosts, and I am rejoined again by my Missouri Swagger cohorts, Dennis Hopeless and Kyle Strahm. And we're going to talk a lot about different hosts of horror. But I started thinking about it as a kid. There was a show I used to watch called Uncle Paul. And Uncle Paul was this sort of heavyset guy. He had a top hat and glasses and a cane, and he'd march around, and the kids would follow him in this little Pied Piper line around his studio. And Uncle Paul was very important to me because sometimes he would read your name on his show, like when it's your birthday or something. That was cool. And then there was also Captain Kangaroo, who was also very important to me. Captain Kangaroo lived in a cool house. He had a friend who was a moose and a bunny rabbit, and he had a dude named Mr. Green Jeans that would visit. But wouldn't it be, this is how my brain works. Wouldn't it be weird if Captain Kangaroo or Uncle Paul just finally broke down from having to deal with all these kids, and they just finally broke bad and became like these horrifying, murderous entities? Captain Kangaroo seemed to know everything about everyone, and he was so nice. But what if he were so nice while he was butchering us? That's the kind of thing I think about. It's the kind of thing I was thinking about the entire time I was talking to Dennis and Kyle about horror hosts, even though I didn't bring it up because I didn't want them to realize just how messed up I am.
You counted us down, folks. Welcome to another Missouri Swagger takeover of Cullenoscopy. This one's about horror hosts.
Hey, man, Dennis.
I just realized I had to put on my Facebook. Watch me on Cullenoscopy.
Well, thank you for joining me in honor of us reuniting after our last episode. I did pour myself a heaping helping of this nowadays THC infused drink.
So that's the stuff that you took a shot of and were silly for hours?
Yeah, a shot, gentlemen.
I can't wait to get a bottle in the mail.
I know, I'm assuming they're going to want us to be, want me to be an advertising sponsor. But tonight, we are going to talk about horror hosts.
What kind of host?
How to host horror. Which is interesting only because about a year ago, I sat with the two of you along with a couple of other creators, and we talked about how to market ourselves. And the recommendation that you all brought to me was that I should become a horror host.
Garth Marenghi style horror host.
All right, Garth Marenghi maybe, but a horror host, I hated that concept with a fiery passion.
You were wrong, but you didn't like it. But here's the thing. Cullen described it, the last time we did one of these, he described how he behaves when he gets silly. When he gets a little bit too much to drink or apparently high, he gets silly and charismatic, and it's a version of Cullen Bunn that is just a little bit of a caricature. And so that's what I want to see.
He's doing it right now.
I feel like I'm pretty charismatic at all times.
Yeah, you always are. But you know, like there's Beetlejuice, and then there's the Beetlejuice cartoon. It's that. It's it's the version of you that has been exaggerated for children.
You and that host with the most.
Right. So you take that, you take a little bit of dry ice and some lighting and some Jeremy Hahn accoutrement behind you.
Get a little Dutch angle that.
I don't love any of this.
Get some extreme lighting.
Speaking of Beetlejuice as a host, because this wouldn't be a reunion of Missouri Swagger if we didn't go wildly off topic.
We haven't been together since we recorded an episode of this.
I took my family, we were in LA, and I took my family to this place called the Beetle House.
Mm-hmm.
And Beetle House is a place that is all inspired by Tim Burton movies, and it is hosted, a host. It is hosted by Beetlejuice. So you go and you sit down and you order drinks and you order food. That's all. Like I had like an Edward Scissorhand burger that had like scissors stuck down in the top of it and stuff. And I had like all these drinks that were smoldering with dry ice and everything. And as we're eating, the Beetlejuice song comes up, that dun 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 dun. And I don't know. I've been to many rock concerts. I've been to giant stadiums. I don't know that I've ever been more excited than when Beetlejuice came hopping through the room and introducing himself to everybody. It was like I was seeing the original Jesus come strolling in. It was
It was like a
it was
Six
so amazing.
Flags stunt show, Beetlejuice.
He was
No, it's
I'll tell you
Michael
this.
Keaton.
This guy was born to play Michael Keaton Beetlejuice. He looked
What
like
a
him.
sad.
I mean, I don't know that he could have ever gotten another job. He should be Michael Keaton Beetlejuice. And he was in the red tuxedo Beetlejuice. And he looked great.
So is it sort of like when you go to the Ollivander's wand shop at the Harry Potter land in Universal Studios, except Beetlejuicy?
Yeah, it was super cool, and I was into it, and I loved it.
Your
Were you
And
sandworm.
chosen to be his number one guy?
he did talk to me a little bit. He said I was a little weird. And then Pee Wee Herman came out, and he called my son up to do a bicycle race with him, and he sang my bicycle.
It's like Tim
And
Burton, Jackrabbit Slims, kind of.
it's called Beetle House. If there's one in LA and there's one in New York. I've been to both. They're both fun, but the one in LA is a little more fancy.
Which one has a better Pee Wee Herman?
I did not. So my understanding of Beetle House is they rotate the cast. So you'll see, like, in the one in New York, I never saw Beetlejuice. He never came out. So that's automatically, meh.
It was just Frank and Weenie the whole time.
It was Queen of Hearts and Morticia Adams, I think, were the two that came out in New York. And in LA, it was
Christopher
it was
Walken.
no, it was Edward Scissorhands and Pee Wee Herman and one other person and Beetlejuice. So the LA one was just a little more.
Tim Roth as an ape? Tim Roth in ape makeup.
There,
Came out?
I saw no apes, but Beetlejuice hosts it, and he was awesome. So you should check that out. All right, we're going to talk about horror hosts, and I feel like this is probably near and dear to one of us more than the other two. And by one of us, I mean you, Kyle. But I just feel like you're more of a horror host guy. But before we get into our encounters with horror hosts, where we discovered them, what do you think is the quality? What does a horror host have to bring to whatever they're hosting?
Charisma. They got to bring charisma, which is why we thought you should do it. But really, I probably absorbed this from somewhere else. But there are at least two kinds of horror hosts. There's a sketch comedy horror host, and there is a information drop horror host. I prefer the information drop horror host, who's like, "Here's the thing you're about to watch. Here's information about it." Now I'm second guessing what I said, but because right now, Joe Bob Briggs is my favorite horror host right now on the last drive-in.
I think that's a good one.
But as I was just doing the math in my head, the Crypt Keeper might be the greatest horror host of all time. But They're a puppet. They're not, but they don't really. It's just gags. It's just a bunch of gags and jokes. But yeah, charisma. It used to be that it would be a commercial break, right? But
Right.
we don't have that anymore. Uh, and it also used to be the case. I'm no expert, that's for sure, but a lot of local channels, a lot of stations would get these huge libraries of horror movies because they were cheap or because they had no copyright. And they would pick somebody who worked there and be like, "Hey, you're charismatic. We need somebody to go through these movies and put them on TV. We also need an extra 20 minutes of content. So go to it." And so they would show a lot of these movies, and there would be dozens of horror hosts all across the country in different regions. That's all gone away now because everything is so, you know, expansive. For example, like Night of the Living Dead, that movie, when it was distributed, they changed the title of it, but the title had the copyright on it. So they lost, when they first aired Night of the Living Dead or showed it, they lost the copyright. And that's why every single TV station, Night of the Living Dead is one of the first horror movies they show, that the host shows. But anyway, that's why we all know about Night of the Living Dead anyway, because it was on every TV station. I'm getting off track here, but
That's all right. I like it.
Here, I wrote some down. These are my top horror hosts. Joe Bob
Oh
Briggs.
man, we're just jumping right into your top horror host.
What do you want me to do? You're the host of this
Well,
show.
let's hear what Dennis. What do you think makes a good horror host? And then I want Kyle to start throwing in some horror hosts to us.
Well, see, my experience was limited because when I was a kid, we didn't have cable, and we had a one unaffiliated TV station until like middle school that eventually became UPN and WB. But Channel 62 had Day Scream Theater, and they would play it on like Saturday and Sunday afternoons after the regular programming. And they were like very edited down horror movies from the 70s and 80s. So a lot of my love of horror came from watching those weird things in broad daylight while my mom like did laundry. But there was no horror hosts. So I remember my dad rented a collection of old horror movies that had Elvira on it because he had remembered Elvira from when he was a kid, or not a kid, when he was younger. I don't know when that started.
Why do you think you remembered Elvira, Dennis?
Probably because she was a woman with the breasts out. Uh, and yeah, I remember thinking that was a weird thing that she was setting up these movies and then we'd watch these movies. And then the only, other than the Crypt Keeper, like the Crypt Keeper would be the big one. In case people don't know, Elvira was a vampire-esque femme fatale horror host who made, I assume, innuendo jokes as she set up movies, right?
So many innuendos.
That was her whole shtick, yeah.
Yeah.
But then also, it wasn't horror, but USA Up All Night did it with like raunchy comedies and stuff, where you had Gilbert Gottfried and then that lady with the high-pitched voice.
Rhonda
who would do
Shear.
those. Yeah. And so I remember those when, at my grandmother's house when I'd stay with her. She had cable, so we would watch those. But yeah, Day Scream Theater, for whatever reason, didn't have a horror host. They would just show it and then air local commercials.
I feel like it's kind of a lost art form, really. I mean, I think Svengoolie is still out there in Chicago doing Svengoolie's thing.
He is.
And he's not on my list.
Second or third Svengoolie. Like the new guy.
Yeah, it's been multiple Svengoolies, right? Yeah, it's all right. So Kyle, you're ready to jump into it about your favorite horror host.
I'm ready to go with the flow, Cullen.
Let's go through the list. You give us one, and then we'll pop through as we think of others. I have a list of a number of horror hosts that I really hosts that stick in my mind, but I want to hear your thoughts first.
All right. Well, I'm going to double up and just say the two that we've already said. Joe Bob Briggs, who started by writing. He decided there were all these drive-in movies back in the 70s and 80s that were just considered trash, and he decided, nobody's reviewing these, I'm going to review them. So he made up the fake name Joe Bob Briggs. His real name is I can't believe I can't remember it. It's because I'm starstruck by Cullen here. Uh, it's John. I'll tell you later. So
That's
he
for the
started
best.
writing a column called Joe Bob Goes to the Movies, where he reviewed these drive-in movies, and it became hugely popular. And throughout the 80s and 90s, he had multiple TV shows where exactly what we talked about, where a company would have this. The way it works, they buy these huge packages of movies, and they're mostly paying for the blockbusters, but then they get 400 horror movies along with it. And so it was his job on the movie channel to sort through all this stuff and say, all right, we're going to do this. Or on TNT, he did Monster Vision. And he had another one too. What was it? And then a few years ago, Shudder brought him out for a 24-hour reunion show. It was called The Last Drive-In. It was supposed to be his last show ever, and it was so popular, all the servers crashed, and he thought that was terrible news. But his sidekick Darcy was like, "No, this is great, man." And so then they made it a yearly show. I think it's in the 7th season now, which is fantastic. So
It's become almost like destination viewing. When that show pops up, people are like, "We got to watch Joe Bob tonight."
well, it's unique because it airs. It's not live, but it airs at a certain time, and
Right.
that's not a. Full, I don't have cable. I do all my stuff on streaming, so it's really cool. And also, Darcy is on the internet, on Twitter, not Twitter anymore, on all the other stuff. So it's like a community thing in real time that's going on. And during lockdown, it was very helpful for me. It was an important anchor for me to be like, this is happening. And I'm less on top of it. The other thing that happens is Shudder realized when Joe Bob's on for 10 weeks, people subscribe and then they cancel. So they've manipulated it so that it lasts all year now.
Right.
So Joe Bob is on the first Friday of every month.
So when I wasn't a kid, like when I was 18, my parents moved to Missouri, and I stayed in North Carolina, and I lived in this trailer that my dad had helped me rent. And Joe Bob was coming on the air then, because that's what, like, I remember sitting on the couch in that trailer watching a Joe Bob. He did like these bumpers in between movies on HBO or Showtime or whatever. And I remember the one I remember is he talks about Jean-Claude Van Damme and how he could do splits and hold himself between the walls and stuff, and how impressed he was by that and how awesome Jean-Claude Van Damme was. But I remember those Joe Bob bumpers from 89, 90 is when I was living in that trailer, was when I first like stumbled onto him. And I've just been a fan ever since, because he's very much, he embraces the love of it. He embraces, this is what I love. This is what I like. And that's it. And that's awesome, I think.
He's very intelligent. He when his shows ended, he was hired by the government to do all this research and write a book about this satellite system.
Yeah.
And I watched the hour-long presentation on YouTube because he's that charismatic that he talked about satellites for an hour, and I was like, this is mesmerizing. He's a very interesting guy, but he's an actor. He was in the Scorsese Casino. He was in Al Bundy. He was on Married with Children.
Wasn't he in the first adaptation of The Stand? Wasn't he the military guy or whatever who had Captain Trips? I may be remembering wrong, but I feel like that was Joe Bob.
I believe it. I don't know the answer, but I believe it. His name is John Bloom, by the way. That's his real name. But he tells a story that I really like about when his shows had ended. This would have been in the 2000s. He had no money. He was in New York. He had to get on a bus to go across town for a meeting about writing a book. He thought, I bet I can get on. He had no money for bus fare, so he thought, I bet if I get on this bus, nobody's going to notice that I'm on it. So he got on. He was nervous, and the bus driver called him out and was like, "You didn't get it. You didn't get a ticket. You got to get off the bus." and he assumes he looked shocked. And he said there was a guy there in a horror T-shirt, and he said to this day he doesn't know if that guy recognized him or not. But the guy in the horror T-shirt was like, "I'll get your ticket, man," and bought him the ticket. And he said that is a great representation of his entire life, because in his older years, he really didn't know what he was going to do. But this thing happened, and the horror community really stepped up and has embraced him. And he gets teary eyed talking about how like it's given him a life basically and security.
I got a little misty eyed just hearing that story. That's kind of awesome. All right, you had another one though, Kyle. You wanted
Well,
to,
you got
yeah.
to say Elvira. Elvira
I,
is a cultural icon. She's awesome. She's the opposite of. She doesn't give the info. She's more like a crypt keeper. Like it's puns. It's lots of jokes. But she's a sharp cookie. Like she has branded herself, and she has so much going on. It's really fascinating. Cassandra Peterson is her name. I keep meaning to listen to her autobiography, but I have not yet.
I haven't read it either. My older brother was in love with her
Yeah.
when I was a kid, and I have dear friends who are still to this day just head over heels in love with Elvira / Cassandra Peterson. I mean, she's very. And if you ever look at some of those old, she'd go on like Johnny Carson or whatever, those old interviews. I think she was just so charming and interesting on those interviews, even without hosting the movies. I thought she was awesome in those.
But she was a groundling, so she developed the. Well, no, she didn't. That's not true. She didn't develop Elvira while she was in the groundlings, but she was friends with Paul Rubens, who. So she was present while he developed Pee Wee Herman, and Cassandra Peterson is the biker in the Pee Wee Herman movie, because they were buddies, and yeah, they had a. The '80s were very good to both of them.
And she had a movie, more than one actually, but
Two at
really,
least.
yeah. And a pinball machine, a pinball game that was awesome. And she was the host of DC's House of Mystery for a short run.
Have you written any Elvira comics? I have the Dynamite Omnibus here that was kickstarted. Is there a
I've,
Cullen Bunn? Is there a
I've
Cullen Bunn?
never written an Elvira comic.
I've drawn a couple of Elvira covers, and I wanted to meet her at Planet Comic Con, but what usually happens is I go over and I'm like, oh, I can't stand in that line, so I didn't.
Right.
Not. Anyway, she does not appear as Elvira very often anymore.
Well, didn't they do like a reality show or something about 10 years ago where it's like the new Elvira?
Yeah, find the next Elvira or something like that. And she did a weird thing with. I could be making this up completely, but I want to say she and William Shatner did some like 12 Days of Horror thing where she would pick the movies. But most recently, as far as stuff to watch, she had a Shudder special where she showed a couple of movies. And also, she was a guest on The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs, where they showed one of her movies. I don't remember which one. But check
As
it
herself or as Elvira?
out. I'm pretty sure she was herself, and Darcy was dressed as Elvira.
Oh man, what a weird meta commentary on the
I
world.
don't remember.
Yeah.
She was Elvira on her show that she hosted. She was definitely Elvira, and she was in a Cadillac or something. But
Like a big black Cadillac hearse or something. Isn't that what she drives around?
it was red. But yeah, something.
All right.
But yeah,
All right.
those are the two you gotta.
I think we got to get those out of the way. They're the echelon, right? Dennis, do you have a horror host that I mean, I feel like we all have different paths into horror, but
Yeah, so probably the Crypt Keeper. I mean, I was thinking the thing that I actually did watch a lot of that was adjacent to this was Mystery Science Theater, where it was the same sort of idea, and they would sometimes play horror movies, but that's obviously a more elaborate situation. But my father, so when I was a kid, we didn't have cable, and my grandmother had cable, so occasionally when I was younger, I'd get to watch cable at her house. But my dad would go on these road trips, and he would stay at the Howard Johnson in that had HBO, and so he would watch Tales from the Crypt, and he would do the Crypt Keeper joke at the beginning, and then he would tell me the plot of Tales from the Crypt episodes, and I loved this. This is my favorite thing about when he would come home from being on the road. And then a couple of years later, when I started staying at my grandmother's house in summers because I was too old for summer camp, those same episodes would air, and I'd realize like halfway in that I knew what was coming because I had remembered what my dad told me. So the Crypt Keeper, like I have a special place in my heart for that. And that's probably the one that I associate with the most.
Well, yeah, I feel like the Crypt Keeper's probably even beyond. I mean, Elvira is probably the most famous horror host, but the Crypt Keeper's got to be up there. That's the one that I think most people really think about. Like, that's what a horror host is, because he had the puns, he had the crazy cackle. I mean, everything about him was kind of great.
Is he from EC Comics?
Yes, but he didn't. So the EC Comics version of the Crypt Keeper was just a dude in like a robe. He was creepy looking, but he wasn't like a desiccated corpse. And I don't think when I ever read those EC Comics, I ever heard uh, the voice actor who does the Crypt Keeper is what's his name?
His
Yeah,
name's
John
John.
Kassir. Yeah. I never heard John Cassier's, like I don't hear his voice when I see the old Crypt Keeper comics, when he's hosting EC. But he definitely took that and made it his own. And I mean, I think that's what most people, you think Tales from the Crypt, you think of that desiccated little corpse creature.
I think it's very interesting what you just touched on. We're really talking about two different things here because the horror comics, going way back, have an intro. There's a drawn character who's like, "Here's the story we're going to tell you," which is a totally different origin from television horror hosts who were selected to push out this content. But the Crypt Keeper kind of crosses both of them.
He
Yeah,
does.
because
He
the show
does.
made its own content. He was showing the show that he was on, but it was similar for sure. But there's
Yeah.
I don't remember the movie Creep Show. There's a horror character on the cover of that, but does he
The
appear in the
creep,
movie?
the
Yeah.
creep, but he doesn't host in the most you get of him hosting in Creep Show is they flip to the page where he's on, or either he appears as like in a window in like I think Creep Show 2 and he's like creepy, he's like "Argh." Or no, in Creep Show 2, I think the creep is the garbage man and he's like, you want to
Creep Show
read?
2 doesn't have a tight bookend. It's
No.
disappointing. The
Yeah.
first Creep Show it's so smart. The comic
Yeah.
that I don't remember. I haven't seen it in a long time, but I really love that the kid has a comic and
That his dad doesn't want him to have.
so he throws it away, and then
Yeah.
the camera zooms in on it, and the pages turn. One of the pages has a coupon cut out of it,
Yeah.
and then at the end, I don't remember what he ordered, but he
A
orders
voodoo
some
doll.
thing.
And he goes,
A what? What was it?
he orders a voodoo doll
Yeah,
because
yeah.
he starts poking. He's like, "Oh, what do you think of this, Dad?" And he's like, but no, the creep never really. He only there's word bubbles in that comic, but he never like manifests in the movie.
Mhm. And then you reminded me, Showtime saw the success of HBO's Tales from the Crypt show, and they were like, "Well, we got to get in on this," because the '90s. If you're watching this and you weren't in the '90s, if you weren't around or if you weren't watching this kind of stuff, comedy horror was huge in the '90s. It was massive. Like Death Becomes Her was a huge hit in theaters, which is basically just a long Tales from the Crypt episode because everyone worked on it who worked on the show. But Showtime was like, we want to do that, so they got John Carpenter to create a pilot for a show called
Body bags.
And John Carpenter's the host of that show, and he looks really desiccated. I'm not going to spoil it. If you like this kind of stuff, you should check out Body Bags.
Is it good?
It's as
I
good as
think that's
Tales from the Crypt.
subjective.
It's as good as a medium quality Tales from the Crypt episode.
But is it better than the Friday the 13th TV show?
Whoa, whoa, whoa! Hey, shots
I
fired.
didn't come here to play hardball.
What is happening? First of all, Friday the 13th, the TV show, wasn't an anthology series in the same sense, and it didn't have a host. Because what would Jason Voorhees do as a host? Which would be awesome if he just sort of walked up.
Colin's showing his ass here. Jason Voorhees isn't in the Friday the 13th TV.
He's not, but if there were a horror host in the Friday the 13th TV series,
if it were Jason Voorhees, that would be awesome.
And he would just stand there
Because he wouldn't say
silently
anything.
menacing. He would silently menace you. That would be awesome. I would love it.
Although
it
there
would've
was a
made
show
more
called
sense to me.
Freddy's Nightmares. It was a
I
2-season,
think it was pretty good.
and they'd bring in Robert Englund for like 2 hours to record all the Freddy stuff and pay him whatever absurd thing they had to pay him. And then the rest of the show, by the second season, it was on at like 2 a.m. They just let him do whatever they wanted.
Yeah.
All those guys who had a shoestring budget, after that ended, they went and worked on Tales from the Crypt. Same team went over there. Yeah.
We're getting off topic. We're not. We're all talking about hosts, and this is awesome. That's what people like.
I got one more thing.
Well, I got another host first, but go ahead. All right, go ahead.
This relates to what Dennis said about Mystery Science Theater. I meant to mention this. Mystery Science Theater, the Joe Bob Briggs show, there's a quality of television. It's a low quality. That low production value and like the weird thin narrative that goes throughout, because every episode of Mystery Science Theater has like 8 minutes of narrative for the character. And Joe Bob Briggs, his shows have the same thing. My favorite ones, there was like a Friday the 13th marathon way back, and throughout the night everybody started disappearing, like the crew would disappear. So by 3 a.m. when you're watching the fourth movie, Joe Bob Briggs is like, where is everybody? And it's all really low rent, but I love that stuff.
That's awesome.
That's all.
So, the first horror host I want to mention is not from a TV. He didn't host movies on TV shows that I know of, or on TV that I know of. But I feel like if we don't mention him, it's a disservice to the community and the world. And that is Forrest J. Ackerman, who was the editor of Famous Monsters magazine. If you weren't familiar with the old issues, every issue, Uncle Forey would kind of talk about things, and every issue had a voice that would carry through the entire magazine. And it was all Forrest J. Ackerman. He introduced me to so many horror movies and science fiction movies all through that magazine. I can't imagine me being who I am without Famous Monsters and Forrest Ackerman.
Me either.
Yeah. Did you read Famous Monsters, Kyle? Of course you did.
I'm saying I can't imagine you being who you are. I didn't read that. No, it's one of those, it's in that weird space. The small space between our age. I missed it.
Is that when you're saying you're too old? I'm too young?
You're an old fart, and I'm a little bit younger.
A younger fart. And Dennis never even heard of Forrest Ackerman.
No, I have not heard of the person. I remember seeing those magazines at like
my house,
antique shops in the pile of old magazines and comic books.
All right, fair enough. Whatever. All right, so Forrest Ackerman's my first one. Kyle, who else have you got?
Well, does Dennis have one?
I thought Dennis hit us with the Crypt Keeper.
Oh, you're right. Okay, I'm going to bring it local. One of my favorite staples of the Free State Comic Con in Lawrence, Kansas is Gunther Dedman, the host of the Basement Sublet of Horror. I met him. I've been doing that show for a decade or more, probably way more. And I met this guy. He used to show up at the show in complete makeup. Do you know Gunther? It might be Gunther.
Go with Gunther. I like that better.
In my mind, it's Lester, and it'll always be Lester.
It's not Lester.
I know that you're right, but that's always what I come up with.
Anyway, super sweet guy. I started to see him. Our relationship spans over a decade, so we'd see each other at the show, and eventually we would be like, "Oh, hey, I do this," and he did this, and he would make these magazines, the Basement Sublet of Horror magazine, and he would make comics with his character, and he would record. He would get all of these copyright-free movies, and he would edit them to make them shorter, and he would record them. And he, for a while, he had a Roku channel. There was a Roku channel with them, and you could watch them there. And he has a website, of course, which is the basement sublet of horror.com, which you should all go check it out. Give him some love. He's very cool. Now he shows up out of makeup, and we always say hi to each other. But I'm seeing that guy.
I think that's one of the better names of a horror show that I've heard in a long time. The Basement Sublet of Horror.
Oh yeah,
So yeah,
so the beginning is like a, I can't. It might be like CGI, but it's sort of. It's like. It's not a photo of a house, and it zooms in on the single light window, and then it goes inside. He's in a. He has those brown plastic wood pattern VHS things behind him, and just like the other shows, there's sometimes a weird little narrative that goes on. But good stuff.
I
Did
love
he
it.
have a show? Did he have like a cable access show, or is it always just internet?
It's been he's done it himself, a do-it-yourself thing, but it was always available on like modern media. Like it was really cool that it was on Roku. I thought that was awesome. I'm looking at his website right now.
I and I will, by the way, I'll put links to all this stuff in the episode so that people can link to all of it and check it all out. So, all right, Dennis, what's next for you?
In life?
In horror hosts. Who else do you like? Do you like any other horror hosts?
Like I said, I don't. The ones that I remember aren't horror related. Like my big local TV access horror was Daystream Theater, which actually that's how I saw Creepshow, was edited for TV on Daystream Theater, and House 1 and 2 and all of those things.
Then they sound like a horror host to me. All right.
Yeah. There wasn't a person. It was me. I was
Yeah.
my own horror host. I
All
was
right.
introducing those movies myself.
What voice did you use? Let's hear it.
Oh god, it was probably not a good one.
It wasn't like,
Was it?
hello, kitties.
No. I don't know that well, I had more of a southern Missouri accent as a child. So it was probably a little bit like this to talk about the movies.
So a Cullen Bunn voice.
I hate
Sort of.
you all so much.
A little bit less Carolina.
It's North Carolina. So my next one, do you guys remember the Munsters?
Yeah, of course.
Do you remember that Grandpa Munster became a TV host for TBS for a while on Super Scary Saturday?
He's on my list, but not for that.
Yeah, well, of course. He's for Gremlins 2 is what I always think of instantly. But he had his own, he hosted a horror movie show on TBS. And it was really weird because he was kind of, I always felt like when you watch it, like, you weren't watching a show as much as watching this creepy old Dracula walk around just being creepy. Because he would just laugh at nothing. And he would never look at Grandpa Munster.
Are you sure it was Grandpa Munster?
It was Grandpa Munster hosted Super Saturday. It was the official.
All right.
It was the official Grandpa Munster.
I believe you. He was Grandpa Fred in Gremlins 2.
Yeah, but Gremlins 2 is a whole different. Look, there would be Grandpa Munster walked so Gremlins 2 could run. But I do love. Let's talk about that Gremlins 2 version because I thought he was awesome.
You're right. It's super scary.
There it is.
But yeah, he shows. If you haven't seen Gremlins 2, you should. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. Which I used to say that, and people would be like, "That movie's terrible." But now I say that, and people are like, "It's genius."
It is.
I know it is.
Without a doubt. and I say this without any, this is not being facetious. It may be the greatest sequel of all time because it did something completely different while honoring the original material. And it wasn't the same movie repeated. It was just an insanely different version of the Gremlin story.
Yeah. So there's like a 5-minute part of the first Gremlins where they're in the bar. She like walks through the bar, and they're all like swinging on the ceiling fan. They just made that the whole movie.
Yeah.
But yeah,
That's fair.
he plays Grandpa Fred, who is a horror host who is down on his luck, but he gets locked in the building with the Gremlins and has a cameraman, and he's able to broadcast to the world, and he gets his second chance in life, and it's good stuff.
I have a gremlin spider right there. It's hanging over the shelf always.
Oh, look at that! That's cool. There's mine up there.
There he is. And my favorite, look, I love when he would interview the Tony Randall, brain gremlin. He was the best, and the interviews between the Grandpa Fred or Uncle Fred, whatever it was, and the brain gremlin were amazing.
Brain Gremlin's right over there. Good movie. So that's a good one. I can cross it off my list. It counts as yours.
Yeah, cross it off.
So,
all right.
Al Lewis was 41 years old when he started playing Grandpa Munster.
He got a whole life out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did.
I've got some more bundled. I bundled them together.
All right, bundle up because I've got some odd ones, I think.
I think we have to talk about Rod Serling and Alfred Hitchcock.
Yes.
Both extremely intelligent kings of the pitch. Like, those guys could go into a room and pitch anything. And I would love to see the video of them pitching their shows. Twilight Zone, of course, Alfred Hitchcock Presents, which I used to watch on Nick at Night. And I've probably seen every episode of Alfred Hitchcock Presents. I've seen most of the. I read a story recently that I love about Rod Serling. The Twilight Zone had not come out yet. I am ignorant of what he did before. I don't know his history, but he was doing movies and stuff. This interview, the guy interviewing him for whatever magazine or newspaper was kind of a jerk and being like, so I guess your career's over and you're going to just do this horror trash now. I guess you don't have anything else to say about society or politics. And Rod Serling was like, yeah, the well is dry. It's just going to be a stupid show about ghosts and monsters. And I don't have anything else to comment on. He made this guy look like a dumbass, basically. Very good interview.
They were both so. I mean, yeah, they were like as you said, they were masters of pitching ideas. They were both so dry in their presentation of things, but it was just so well done. And I think it might be the preview for like the trailer for Psycho. And it's just Alfred Hitchcock like giving you a tour. He's like, here's the hotel where this would happen. The boy had a very interesting hobby. And he's just talking. And every now and again he'd open a door and he'd just go, the bathroom, and just close the door and wouldn't even show you what was in there. And I think that is one of the greatest trailers I've ever seen of anything.
It's awesome. There's a similar one for the Twilight Zone because nothing had been shot yet, and he's just walking around the set doing the same thing. It is quite good, and of course it leads to stuff like the Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities would not exist, obviously, without.
No.
And that's why it was so good because it tapped into that.
Right.
Excellent.
Do you guys know? I've been doing research while you were talking about that stuff. Do you know
right out, Kyle? He's like, let me get on the internet here.
Grandpa Munster's full name, the character's real name, is not Grandpa Munster.
Oh, it's not?
You know what it is?
No.
It's Sam Dracula, Count of Transylvania.
Well, there you go.
Dracula. Okay.
And
Yeah,
He was not the actor in Gremlins 2 is a different person.
that's not him.
It's an homage to him, but it's not him.
Oh, that blew my mind.
Yeah.
I watched Grampire a while back. Terrible movie.
Grampire. No.
Stars the Munsters actor, and he's just playing a grandpa who's a vampire, and I don't recommend it. Sam Dracula.
Sam Dracula.
I,
Different.
I heard Pikachu's full name today. Do you guys know it?
No.
It was revealed in the manga a long
It's
time.
Pika Pika Pikachu.
No, you're gonna hate it. You're not gonna believe me, for one. You're gonna have to look it up to.
Is it something like Bob Pikachu?
It's stupider, but I love it. Of course, I love it. Are you ready? It's
I'm ready.
Jean-Luc Pikachu.
Say it again.
It's Jean-Luc.
I'm out.
Pikachu.
No, I can't. I can't with Jean-Luc Pikachu.
It's Jean-Luc Pikachu.
No.
It's true story.
All right, so
Pika Picard.
my next toast.
You
Dennis,
froze Cullen. It was so good it froze him.
You did. My next host is not a horror host either, Dennis. But I feel like he hosted so many great horror movies along with great martial arts movies and everything else. And that is Commander USA from the USA Network. Are you familiar with this guy?
I'm about to be.
So Commander USA would come on Saturday and Sunday afternoons, and he was a superhero, and he'd fly to the scene, and that's him. And he was like a really blue collar Archie Bunker superhero. He always had a cigar in his mouth, and occasionally he would take the cigar and draw a smiley face on his hand, and that was his co-host Lefty. And he showed hundreds of movies under this groovy movie, Captain or Commander USA's groovy movies, and he would show just all sorts of movies. And I'm pretty Godzilla, Gamera, all sorts of terrible sci-fi horror movies, and I'm pretty sure that it was through Commander USA that I first saw Friday the 13th Part 2 and Friday the 13th Part 3. I feel like he showed them in a double feature. And that Part 2 scared the hell out of me. If it wasn't for if Commander USA hadn't been there to hold my hand, I don't think I could have handled it.
Which one's Part 3?
That's the 3D
Corey
one.
Feldman?
No, that's the next one, I think, right? Is Corey Feldman in 3? It's the Part 3 is the 3D version where he has the spear gun and he shoots it at you.
Do you think it's weird that this guy looks like the comedian from Watchmen?
He does look a lot like the comedian, just not quite as fit.
Yeah. Or angry. Not quite as angry.
Definitely not as angry, but I feel like the comedian may have been inspired by Commander USA. Who else have we got, Kyle?
I'm going to bundle these two together because I don't know much about them.
All right.
And I wish I wanted to do more research before this to talk about them, but I didn't because life's life, man. But I have two friends who love them. My friend Matt Mitchell, who's an awesome author, and he writes comic books and prose both. He loves Bob Wilkins. Bob Wilkins looks like a square. He looks like Brad from the Rocky Horror Picture Show. He wears a plaid blazer. He's got big black glasses. He's from the 50s or 60s, I don't know. But he sits down and as a conservative square gives you the dirt on the horror movies. There he is. But
I thought it was important to show him because when you said he looks like a square, I pictured SpongeBob.
But Matt recommended to me a documentary about him, which I'm going to watch. And then the other one of my good friends, John, who's a really awesome guy and helps me out with a lot of stuff. He loves Sammy Terry. Sammy Terry's Nightmare Theater.
Never heard of it.
Was his local horror host. And you should look up Sammy Terry. There he is. That's an okay photo of Sammy Terry. But yeah, John's a really good friend of mine, and I enjoy the lore of Sammy Terry. There he is. But I've got more. But go on, Cullen. You give us a couple.
Well, I don't know. I was thinking of. I mean, I feel like we mentioned Svengoolie earlier on in the episode. I never watched any Svengoolie movies, and I know they're still being. I mean, he's still hosting movies to this day, whichever version of Svengoolie it is. But I do remember a long time ago, one of the first World Horror Conventions I ever went to in Chicago. I went with my buddy Sean, who you've all met, co-writer of The Tooth, and we were selling zines.
That's the original Svengoolie, Dennis.
Yeah, that's the first guy. We were selling zines, and Svengoolie came through with a camera crew, kind of recording everybody's table. There was a lady sitting across from us who was selling spankings. Her name was Sister Mary Death, and she was dressed
Sister what?
Mary Death.
Okay. How much was it?
She was, I think it was $5 to be spanked. A bargain. And she was in like a full body latex dress. This is important to know because Svengoolie came by and he completely ignored Sean and the zine Sean and I were trying to sell. He just walked right on by them. And I was you guys may not realize this, but I get very depressed about what people think of my work, and I get there very quickly. So I was obviously very sad that Svengoolie didn't even give our zines the time of day.
You should have given him.
Yeah, but I didn't. And he was walking. He was all the way down the aisle, and I was
given him a free spanking.
I told my friend Sean I was very sad about all this, and he says, "Don't worry, Svengoolie's coming back, and he's gonna love what we do." And Sean went over and he whispered something in Sister Mary Death's ear, and then he walked down the way and he whispered something in Svengoolie's ear, and Svengoolie a few minutes later comes back to talk to us about Undaunted Press, which was our publication. And I'd given the pitch, we're a small press publisher and we publish horror and science fiction. And Sean pushes me aside. I did not know he was going to do any of this. He pushes me aside and he says, "You listen to me, Svengoolie. This is what publishing is going to be about. This isn't the past. This is the future. And all you big publishers he was like doing a wrestling bumper. He was getting louder and angrier. And he was like, no big publisher can publish the quality that our small press publishes. And then Sister Mary Death comes storming over and she grabs Sean and she says, "That's right, down with big publishing." And she bends him over our table, scattering our zines everywhere. And then she starts spanking him on camera with Svengoolie interviewing us.
Where's this footage? Did this air somewhere?
So when this was all done, Svengoolie said to us, "This will absolutely make the episode." But I've never seen it.
What's your publisher called?
It was Undaunted Press.
What?
Undaunted. Undaunted by your lack of interest in our product.
All right. I'm very interested.
I don't know if you can find it. It's 20 years ago, but there's been weirder stories.
What was the convention called?
It was the World Horror Convention. I can't remember which year it was, but it was in Chicago, and it rotates, so you can pinpoint it, I think.
Oh, man. There's a really good video of Rhonda Shear, who hosted Up All Night, going to a horror convention and, interviewing Joe Dante and all these people. It's like a 20-minute thing. It's good stuff.
I like that a lot.
Well, I'm going to look into this Svengoolie Undaunted Press World Horror Con thing.
You research it as best you can and try to find it.
I could never find that pipe, that haunted ghost pipe. Let's put it out there again for all the few people listening.
So this is probably mentioned in an earlier episode, but we'll mention it again. Kyle has been on the hunt for me because when I was a kid, there was a comic that absolutely terrified me, and I've been unable to find it. And this was an anthology comic, probably hosted by one of these hosts we've been talking about. It was either maybe it was a Charlton, so it could have been Dr. Werewolf. It could have been a House of Mystery, so that'd be what, Cain or Abel. But anyway, it was in one of those anthologies, and it was about a little boy, and his grandfather or uncle or somebody would sit on the porch and smoke his pipe. And then the uncle would fall asleep, and whenever he fell asleep, the smoke from the pipe would billow out into a monster and chase this little boy all around the farm.
Farm? I never had a farm before.
All right, well, yeah, it's a farm. I'm pretty sure it wasn't in a building. It's in a farm. Anyway, I can't find this comic. Like I said, I've mentioned it many times. I've mentioned it on this show. Anyone who knows, who can track down whatever that story was, will be my hero.
What will you give them?
Let's don't talk about what they will be given. They need to they don't need to do this for a prize. They need to do it for the sense of accomplishment. And
well, if you want people to actually do it, you should give them a prize.
I'll give them a Cullen Bunn comic book. Perhaps I'll give them a 2-volume set of Unearthed, volumes 1 and 2.
You should.
I should. Maybe I will. If you reach out, and I will.
I got 2 more. If you haven't seen the show Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, highly recommend it. It's from like 20 years ago. It stars Matt Berry. It stars another guy. It actually doesn't star Matt Berry, but he's in it. But
He's
it is
the best part.
Garth Marenghi. The whole thing is, how do I even describe it? So Garth Marenghi is an author who wrote a few horror books that got turned into a TV show. That's the premise of this show. And he is reintroducing the Lost series to us. And at the beginning, he gives little intros, and it's fantastic. I can't describe it besides it's hilarious. But in the same vein as Garth Marenghi, I am infinitely delighted by Todd McFarlane's intros to the Spawn cartoon.
Yeah, I was going to say.
In the 1990s HBO TV show, where he's like I think he's in like a castle with like a drawing desk and a candle, and he's like drawing, and the camera comes in and he turns around and he's like, "Hello, I'm Todd McFarlane." And they are so well known at this point. The last time he did a big CGC signing, they did that. Like the camera came in. It was good. Todd, if you don't know, Todd McFarlane is the creator of Spawn and co-founded Image Comics.
And Kyle and I both regret not meeting him one time.
Well, the photo. I regret not getting a photo with him. Because Baltimore had never met Todd at New York Comic Con. And Cullen and I were both like, been there, done that. Baltimore, go meet him, whatever. And Baltimore did. And Todd was just like hanging out at the Image booth, and we had a signing there, so it was a friction-free situation. But Cullen and I were like, yeah, whatever, we've done that. And then I got a picture of Baltimore with Todd, and right afterward, Cullen and me were like, yeah, we should have done that too.
We should. Todd McFarlane was so gracious with Baltimore when he went over. He goes, "Hey everybody, this is Baltimore Rivas, and he has a book coming out from Image." He was so excited about it. That's when I was like, Kyle, we shouldn't have been so
jaded.
Smart. Yeah, jaded. We were jaded, and we felt bad the rest of that weekend.
You were expecting a different treatment from other creators you had met.
I expect any kind of reaction from any other creator. Usually it's just a look up and down and walking away.
Just pivot your chair away.
Yes.
I do have a photo. I have a photo of me with Todd when I was like 12.
That's
16.
Pretty awesome.
You should check out Garth Marenghi.
And Garth Marenghi, and I love that show, has released several novels now under the by Garth Marenghi. I have a couple of them in the other room. I haven't read either of them. There's one called Incarcerate, and one called Terratome. And I have them both in hardcover. I haven't read them yet.
He
But
also
they're-
recorded audiobooks in character, which is fantastic.
Yeah. So yeah, and then you mentioning Todd McFarlane hosting Spawn, probably around the same time there was I can't remember the show was called Night Visions, and it was hosted by Henry Rollins of Black Flag fame. And I always thought he was funny because, you know, Todd had this camera on him that would roll in the castle and all that. Henry Rollins would just stand there in a black t-shirt. There'd be some horrible moment in the show and we'd cut to him for the bumper and he'd just be like, weird, right? And then it would cut on to the rest of the show. But I do remember that Night Vision show was pretty good.
Well, if that counts, then Jonathan Frakes is my favorite horror host of all time.
Well, let's hear about it. Why?
Because on the, what is it called? Fact or Fiction? It's called, yeah. And he does these setups. It's a 90s like unsolved mysteries type of show, but the premise of the show is they are going to show you, I don't know, it's like 5 or 6 little short vignettes, and you have to decide whether you think it's real or they just made it up for the show. And Jonathan Frakes will set up in like elaborate metaphor fashion these scenarios in between each one, and then at the end of the show, after that you've watched like an hour of these little badly made reenactments of these things, he'll just be like, so what do you think? Did the airplane that landed itself because it had the ghost of a man, of the dead father in the engine, was it real or was it fake? And then he'll be like, something like this has happened, and then he'll move on to the next one. Like it gives you no context or explanation. And when they made it up, he'll just be like, nope, not this time, we made it all up. It's incredible.
I'm unfamiliar with this, but what you just described is a great horror host. I mean, he's building suspense and adding some value.
Well, he'll come at the beginning. He'll be like, "Do you remember the tallest man you've ever seen?" And then he'll tell a little story about it, or he'll be like, "Have you ever visited a truck stop?" But you can watch a supercut of like 100 of these questions, and they are awesome. They're on
They're
YouTube.
amazing.
That's awesome. All right. Does anybody have any other horror hosts they want to share with us?
I have 2.
I told you
Vampira.
Kyle would have them. Let's hear them.
Gotta mention Vampira. If you've seen the classic Ed Wood movie Plan 9 from Outer Space, the vampire-looking woman with the insanely tiny waist, that's Vampira. And she was a horror hostess, one of the first ones. There was some friction between she and Elvira that Elvira will never talk about because she's classy, but it all got settled, and you got to mention her, but she's cool. But the other one I want to talk about. So my friend Matt Mitchell and I, for years, we both wanted to make a horror anthology comic book, and we never did because making comics is hard and takes a lot of work. But what we finally figured out was a bunch of our friends also wanted to do the same thing. So Matt and I created a horror anthology called Horrorium, which is this right here. And this is Scabatha, our horror hostess.
It's a great name.
So Scabatha is kind of a mix between the Crypt Keeper and Elvira. And she does both of the things we talked about, where she'll both give information, but she'll also have a lot of silly puns and stuff. But we have a ton of people who participated from the comics industry from Kansas City. Matt Mitchell, Buster Moody, Jonathan Lamantia. I could read, it would take me a long time to read all of the credits, but this is Horrorium. This is the first issue.
Where can people get it, Kyle?
We did a second issue. Well, subscribe to my newsletter because right now it's sold out because it was so popular. This is Horrorium issue 2. Baldemar Rivas drew this cover, and I did this cover. But tons of people. Chris Anderson did art. My friend David Terrell. I'm gonna leave somebody out. I'm gonna feel terrible because I'm gonna leave somebody out. But anyway, Scabatha, there she is.
And
Horrorium.
yeah,
And Horrorium is named after a. We chose it because it's an absurd title. It's impossible to say. We think it's hilarious. It's actually from that Cthulhu Wars game. There's a section called the Hororium, but there you go.
Hororium. Yeah, I
Hororium.
got it. I got it.
That's rough for you because you don't ever hit that R. That second R doesn't happen.
Hororium.
Horarium.
Horarium. Right. Whatever, jackass. All
Horarium.
right, Dennis. Let's go ahead and tell people where they can find you and what you're working on right now.
I'm still working on that as yet, at least when we record this, unannounced Ignition Press book with Strahm Rebel that I'm really excited about. That should come out either at the end of this year or early next year. And then slow rolling a middle grade project with Chris Grind called Meat Shakes that will come out after that. So that's what I'm working on. You can find me on my rarely used social media that's still there for the next time I need to promote something. Dennis Hopeless Comics on Instagram and TikTok, and then Facebook.
All right. Kyle, what about you?
What am I working on? I'm working on Twig Volume 2. Scotty Young wrote it. I'm drawing it. And it's all written. And I'm currently going through the issues. So that'll be out at some point. My next thing that comes out is the Spread Compendium, which is all 25 issues of the book I created with Justin Jordan called Spread. That'll be from Image. You can order it now.
Well,
what about you?
Me?
I guess people find you on this channel because it's your channel.
Find me on this, you can always find me at cullenbunn.com. You can subscribe to my newsletter that I put out all the time to keep on to keep the sharpest eye on what I'm doing. And then of course the Cullenoscopy on YouTube is a great place to find me and keep up with all this amazing horror content.
I don't know when this will air, but in this timeline, they just announced your Oz book that you're doing with AARP, AWA.
AWA. Yeah, I've got a new Oz book coming out from AWA. I think it's probably, as this is airing, it's probably live on Kickstarter, or it's already it's come and gone possibly. But that's coming out from AWA, and then I've got some books with Ignition that, much like Dennis's books, have not been announced yet, and those will be coming out soon.
I also want to say, I forgot Christopher Harris, who worked on Hororium, but I want to point out that Meat Shakes that Dennis is developing with Chris Grind drew the logo.
He did.
The Cullenoscopy.
Chris Grind designed the Cullenoscopy logo.
A bold move on your part. Chris Grind.
When I asked Chris Grind, both Kyle and Dennis said, "Are you sure that's what you want? That's who you want to ask, because he's going to give you something ungodly." And when
not ungodly, not poor quality.
No,
it'll be
not poor quality, just conceptually. Especially
the original
the
sketch that we saw, the O was definitely an anus. Let's just put that out there.
If he's listening to this, he is giggling right now. But
when I asked him about it, I was like, "Listen, Chris, you got to take this seriously. It can't be too offensive.
You got to take seriously my podcast."
This is the Cullenoscopy, and we're very serious about what we're involved in here. He's like, "Man, I'm a professional. I'm not gonna draw something terrible for you." And now I hear that there's a terrible version.
Did you or did you not discuss with him the level of handsomeness of the drawing?
Dennis, you're not supposed to.
Oh man,
I may have told him. It may have gone down like this. All right, now listen, Chris. Two very important things about this logo. One, I have to be at least moderately handsome. You can't draw me hideously. And two, it can't be offensive. And if you have to sacrifice two for one, that's okay.
That's hilarious.
Because Chris draws the most unattractive versions of me.
Of everyone. That's his favorite thing to do.
some sort of hideous little golem-like creature. Kyle does it too.
I just draw what I see, man. I'm gonna give you a hint, a tip. I don't know if you can change the way that you.
If this is gonna
I
hurt
don't.
my
This
feelings,
requires
let's
a
not do it.
paradigm shift on your part.
All right, what's the tip?
Just don't care, man.
Oh, that,
Chris has drawn me
I've drawn you.
because he's fueled. He is fueled by your. Uh, what am I trying to say, Dennis? Like his.
Like a vampire, he feeds on my misery.
Your misery is what fuels him. I love it when he draws me. But you feed him, so he just keeps on doing it.
That's fair. That's fair. I drew a picture of you, Kyle, at this year's Planet Comic-Con, one of my favorite experiences at the convention.
This should be the swagger story.
This should be our swagger story. One of my favorite. There's two, and actually it involves both of you. The first one is Dennis's kids came over and asked for a signature on something. And I signed it, as I do, with my flourish. And then these bratty kids came back over and told me I signed my name wrong. And they had, on my signature, on this valuable signed comic, they had filled in the E and the N on my name. They'd written it onto the comic because I forgot to do it.
Yeah.
And I wonder who taught them that.
No, Reese did that on his own. He was just like, wait, he didn't write his name right. I mean, he's
It's
8,
not.
to be fair.
Don't call him a brat, Cullen. That's rude.
They know I don't think they're brats, first of all. I think they're very
excited. That was his favorite thing that he got at the comic convention.
well. He had to correct it, and no, I don't think he's a brat. I think he's very precocious. Like all of those kids are very precocious in their own way. They were also all wearing cosplay of the Dungeons and Dragons campaign that you run for them,
There were.
Dennis. Yeah, so I got to hear all about those characters. And then my other favorite thing was Kyle. They were fans of Kyle's that got a signature on an Unearth, I guess, and then brought it to me to have it signed.
They had Baltimore sign it.
They had bought, yeah.
And in some inside baseball, you can't buy the Sharpie. You can't buy a silver Sharpie to sign comics because it doesn't look good. You have to buy these like more expensive, like sort of paint pens. And Baltimore had signed it in that. And so I was like, oh, it's got to match. So I signed it. And then I gave it to this lovely family and said, we'll take it to get Cullen to sign it, but he's not going to have this pen. So make sure you make him feel bad about it. I don't remember what I said, but you go ahead.
That's obviously what you said because that is what they told me. They said Baltimore and Kyle signed it in a nice pen. And then she said, do you have a nice pen like this? And I was like, no. And I don't know what I did, but I said, well, I'll sign it and then I'll add something to it to make it better than their signature.
Give him a free book.
Oh, that's right. I gave him a book. I'll stoop to the lowest of the lows to get one up on you.
So they came back to me and they said, look, he did have it. And not only that, they gave me a free book. And I said, well, I can't be done. So I gave them a free book. And I drew them a picture. I don't remember what I drew. Did I?
I don't know.
I know.
No, you didn't. You didn't draw me until I drew you. Yeah.
And this went on. So then Cullen drew me, and then I drew you.
It's got to be the weirdest book.
They left with a lot of good stuff.
They did, and they left with a good time.
This is like when people trade a paperclip on Facebook Marketplace, and then eventually they get a free house.
Yeah,
right.
They just keep trading things.
That was a good time. I enjoyed that.
All right. Well, speaking of things that have been enjoyed, guys, I enjoyed talking to you tonight about horror hosts. I knew I'd learn something with Kyle in the mix because I feel like this was right in your wheelhouse. But I want to do this again. I want to I want to talk more. I mean, we can talk about the same things we've talked about already because it's such a deep well.
All right. Well, I'll come on again as soon as I receive my complimentary colonoscopy T-shirt in the mail.
All right, I'll see what I can do. I don't even get
Black
complimentary.
double X, please.
I don't even get complimentary colonoscopy T-shirts, but I'll see what I can do.
Well, send me that logo and I'll make them, and we'll all get complimentary T-shirts. But next time we're talking about Hardy's maggots.
I may have cracked the system.
Yes, next time we're talking about something that I know something about, so that I don't just sit here and feel silly.
Well, Dennis
Maggots.
introduced me to
Maggots are
something I didn't know existed with that Jonathan Frakes stuff. So
you will love it.
You didn't know? Oh,
yeah,
you're gonna like it.
Yeah, I can't wait to check it out. All right, that's it for this time. Dennis, do you want to give us another? We'll do. You know what to say.
Yes, we'll do better next time. Thanks for watching. This has been Cullenoscopy.
I really enjoyed my colonoscopy.
Oh my gosh. So tonight's question comes from my friend Luis, who asks if horror hosts, if they seem to know so much, if they seem to be so aware of what's going on and so self-aware and aware of the person who's watching their story, are horror hosts omnipotent beings? And Luis, I'll tell you that I knew you were going to ask that question. And the reason I knew is that the moment I started recording the colonoscopy, I became a horror host and thereby became omnipotent. Now, some horror hosts are lesser omnipotent, just as some comic writers, compared to moi, are lesser comic writers. But for the most part, we all have a little bit of omnipotence. Me, a ton. So if you liked tonight's episode, I hope you'll hit subscribe. I hope you'll hit like. I hope you will share it with all of your friends and your mortal enemies and let them know they should check this out. You can follow me at, if you go to cullenbunn.com, you can follow me through my newsletter, through my Discord, through my Patreon. Plenty of ways to keep in touch. And I hope you'll send me some more questions that we can address in future episodes. And I look forward to talking to you again.